I used to think my life was pretty normal. I wasn't the most popular girl in school, but I wasn't invisible either. I had a few close friends, decent grades, and dreams that felt big enough to keep me motivated. My family wasn't perfect, but compared to the stories I heard from my classmates, I thought we were solid. My mom raised me mostly on her own, and though we had our fair share of arguments, I always believed we were a team. She was my safe place, my role model, the one person I knew I could trust when everything else got messy. Back then, trust was everything to me. Loyalty was like oxygen, and I couldn't stand the idea of betrayal in any form. I remember looking around at friends who were caught in toxic relationships or broken families and secretly thinking how lucky I was that my mom and I were different. We always had each other's backs. She would call me her little confidant, and for years it felt like we were more than just mother and daughter. We were partners navigating life together. I was just starting to explore what it meant to grow up. My first experiences with love, with figuring out who I was, and with imagining the kind of future I wanted. I felt both terrified and excited by the unknown, but I never doubted I had my mom in my corner to catch me if I fell. If only I had known how much that belief would cost me. Back then, I couldn't have imagined that the very foundation I built my world on, family and trust, would be ripped out from under me in the most shocking, humiliating way possible. I still remember the first time I saw him. It was one of those afternoons when the sun feels warmer than usual, the hallway buzzing with voices and hurried footsteps, and somehow the whole world slowed down for a moment. He was leaning against a locker, grinning in that way that seemed casual but also calculated, like he already knew the effect he had on people. His name was Ryan, and to me, he might as well have been the lead actor in every teenage fantasy I'd ever secretly played in my head. We officially met because a mutual friend introduced us after class, and from the first few words he said, I was hooked. His voice had this low, easy tone, and he looked me directly in the eyes when he spoke. I wasn't used to attention like that, especially from someone who seemed so effortlessly confident. By the end of that first conversation, I felt like I knew him, or maybe like I wanted to believe I did. The weeks that followed felt like living inside a whirlwind. He would text me late at night, making me laugh until I fell asleep with my phone still in my hand. He brought me coffee before school, remembered the exact way I liked it, and acted like nothing made him happier than seeing me smile. Those little gestures lit me up inside. Suddenly, everyday routines like walking to class or scrolling through my phone at lunch had this electrifying anticipation. Was Ryan going to call me today? Was he thinking about me as much as I thought about him? Falling for him wasn't gentle. It was intoxicating. It was as if the whole world had flipped upside down and the only thing keeping me grounded was the way his hand felt when it wrapped around mine. He told me I was beautiful at my most insecure moments, and he talked about the future in ways that made me believe maybe, just maybe, we could be a real, forever couple, and I, naive and desperate for that kind of validation, believed every word. But the thing about Ryan was that his charm didn't have boundaries. Honestly, I noticed it almost right away. The way he laughed with other girls, lingering too close, or the way his phone would light up with names I didn't recognize late at night. Every time I asked about it, he had an easy excuse. She's just a friend. Or, you know? Now how people flirt with me, it doesn't mean anything. And I convinced myself to accept those explanations because the alternative, the idea that he wasn't fully mine, hurt too much to hold on to. Looking back, I see the warning signs as clearly as neon lights. But back then, I buried them under the butterflies in my stomach and the sound of his voice saying my name like it was the most important word in the world. I wasn't just falling for Ryan. I was building my whole sense of happiness around him. And that kind of love, as I would eventually learn, isn't safe. It's a setup for heartbreak. It happened so fast that I didn't even have time to prepare myself. One minute we were laughing on the phone, and the next, I was sitting across from Ryan at a cafe, wondering why his eyes couldn't meet mine. His hands, normally so warm and reassuring, were clenched around his cup like it was the only thing keeping him steady. I remember fidgeting, feeling this gnawing dread in my stomach, like my body knew something bad was about to happen before my brain could catch up. Then, he sighed and said the words that shattered me. I just think we've grown apart. 4 words. That's all it took. I sat there frozen, my mind scrambling. Grown apart? From what? We'd been together constantly, laughing, planning, dreaming. How could he just erase all of it like it was nothing? I tried to push back to remind him of everything we'd shared, but every reply he gave me was vague, rehearsed almost. I need space. It's not you, it's me. You'll thank me later. Each excuse was like a blade twisting deeper, leaving me desperate for a reason that never came. By the time I walked home, it felt like I'd been hollowed out. I held myself together as long as I could, but the second I was in my room with the door shut, I broke. The kind of crying where sound catches in your throat and your chest aches like it's caving in. I replayed the breakup over and over, obsessing over every detail, wondering what I did wrong. Maybe I wasn't pretty enough. Maybe I was too needy. Maybe I wasn't enough, Ryod. The only person I could let see me like that was my mom. mom. She walked into my room, saw my face, and immediately gathered me into her arms. I didn't even have to explain. She just knew. She held me like she used to when I was little and whispered, "You're going to be okay. Trust me. He wasn't your forever." She made me tea, tucked me into bed, and let me cry into her shoulder until exhaustion finally dragged me under. Over the next few weeks, she became my anchor. She checked on me constantly, cracked silly jokes to make me laugh, and reminded me that this heartbreak wasn't the end of the world. When I didn't want to get out of bed, she coaxed me up with breakfast. When I couldn't look at my phone without panicking about his name popping up, she'd take me on spontaneous drives, blasting music loud enough to drown out my thoughts. Still, no matter how much she tried, I buried the ugliest parts of my pain deep inside. I let her see the tears, but not the way my heart collapsed every time I scrolled past his picture. I didn't admit how humiliated I felt imagining everyone at school saying, "Told you so." I smiled when she told me it would all make sense one day, but inside I wondered if love was just a cruel joke I wasn't in on. At first, things at home felt normal enough. After the breakup, my mom kept hovering around me, asking if I'd eaten, checking if I wanted to talk, doing the typical mothering she always did after I got hurt. But slowly, I started noticing things that made me feel unsettled. It was little details at first, so small that I brushed them off as my imagination. Maybe I was just raw from grieving Ryan, and maybe I'd lost my ability to trust my own instincts. That's what I told myself anyway. The first thing was her phone. My mom has never been the type to care much about privacy. She'd leave her phone lying around all the time, the screen on, and lighting up with texts I barely noticed. But then, almost overnight, she became glued to it. She was quick to flip it over whenever I walked into a room, or she'd smile too innocently and mumble, "Just work stuff. Nothing important." It didn't match her. It felt rehearsed. Then there were the late nights. My mom had always been a homebody, the kind of woman who wore sweatpants the second she got home, hair in a messy bun, glass of wine in hand while she watched TV. But suddenly, she was going out more. Hair styled perfectly, wearing perfume I hadn't smelled in years, and slipping into outfits she used to reserve for formal occasions. I'd tease her half-jokingly, "Who are you trying to impress?" And she'd laugh it off, saying she just wanted to feel good again. That should have been sweet, but something about the way she dodged my eyes made my stomach tighten. The weirdest part was the coincidences with Ryan. His name started popping up in her casual conversations, almost as if she let it slip out unconsciously. A small comment like, "Oh, I ran into someone from your school today," followed quickly by a subject change, or she'd hum in the kitchen and I'd realize it was the tune of a song Ryan loved. One day, coming home after class, I swore I smelled his cologne, a distinct, sharp scent he wore religiously. I froze in the doorway, heart pounding, but then my mom emerged from the kitchen, smiling, acting completely normal. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was still haunted by him, but that sharp edge of familiarity clung to my memory like smoke. I wanted to confront her, to just ask what was going on, but then doubt would creep in. Maybe she actually was just rediscovering herself. Maybe she had a new friend. Maybe I was being controlling or overprotective, projecting my heartbreak onto her. After all, the last thing I wanted was to turn into the bitter ex-girlfriend who saw conspiracies in every direction. And yet, every small thing added a nod on her layer of unease. The time she claimed she was meeting an old friend, then came home hours later with her makeup smudged in a way that looked less like crying and more like kissing. Or the night she came inside laughing softly to herself, holding her heels in her hand, forgetting I was even waiting in the living room. When I asked who she had been with, she froze for only a fraction of a second before plastering on her brightest smile and saying, "Just coworkers, you don't know them." That pause was enough to ignite suspicion in me like gasoline on fire. Still, I shoved it all down. I told myself I couldn't accuse her of something without proof. I told myself it was ridiculous to even think she'd somehow be connected to Ryan. That was impossible, unthinkable, right? But a quiet, suffocating dread started to root itself in my chest. And though I tried to ignore it, I couldn't shake the feeling that the walls of my own home were starting to hide something from me. That maybe the betrayal I'd already endured was only the beginning. It happened on a Sunday afternoon, the kind of day that should have been quiet and uneventful. I was curled up on the couch scrolling through my phone when I heard the front door open. My mom walked in, laughing in a way that immediately raised red flags. Light, girlish, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard from her in years. And then I saw him, Ryan, standing right behind her, looking far too comfortable in my house. To this day, I swear time stopped. My mouth went dry, my stomach lurched, and I couldn't even process what I was seeing. At first I thought, no, this has to be some kind of sick joke. Maybe he was dropping her off. Maybe it was just a coincidence. But then I noticed the way they looked at each other, the softness in her eyes, the way his hand hovered against her back like it belonged there. It wasn't innocent. It wasn't heavy. End close. My voice cracked when I demanded, "What the hell is going on?" My mom froze, her smile faltering, while Ryan just stood there like he'd been caught shoplifting. The silence stretched, pressing against my eardrums until I thought I'd explode. And then, with a steadiness that terrified me, my mom said, "I've been meaning to tell you, I'm seeing someone. I'm seeing Ryan." The words didn't feel real. They sounded foreign, like I'd slipped into some alternate reality where every nightmare came true. My brain couldn't keep up with the betrayal stabbing me from both sides. This was my mother, the woman who wiped my tears after Ryan dumped me, who told me he wasn't my forever, and she was standing there, admitting she had chosen him. And Ryan, the boy who made me believe in love for the first time, was grinning sheepishly like I was supposed to accept this as normal. It felt like my chest cracked open. My mind screamed, how could you? How could she do this to me? How could he betray me in the cruelest way possible? The rage surged so fast I thought I might physically shake apart. At the same time, humiliation slashed through me like a knife, imagining what people would say if they found out my mom had taken up with my ex. I was trapped between screaming and sobbing, but all that came out was a choking laugh, the kind of sound you make when the world finally proves it's much worse than you ever imagined. I wanted to believe there was some explanation, something that would make this less grotesque, but there wasn't. My mom betrayed me. Ryan betrayed me. Both of them, the two people I'd trusted the most, stabbed me in the back with the same blade, and I could feel the wound bleeding out inside me, raw and impossible to close. I don't even remember standing up. One second I was on the couch, the next I was on my feet, voice exploding before I could think. Are you kidding me? Are you actually kidding me? My throat burned, my hands shook, and every word came out louder than the last. I pointed at Ryan like he was some kind of venomous snake, and then turned on my mom, my so-called safe place, demanding answers she couldn't possibly give. My mom rushed to calm me, holding her hands out like I was some wild animal. Sweetheart, please, don't call me that. Don't you dare call me that when you're standing next to him. I was crying so hard my chest hurt, but the tears didn't soften the fury. They just made it uglier. She tried to explain, her voice trembling but steady enough to clearly show she'd been preparing for this conversation. I didn't mean for this to happen, it just did. Love works in mysterious ways. You'll understand one day. Her excuse sounded like nails on a chalkboard. I screamed, mysterious ways? That's my ex-boyfriend. The one who broke me? The one you held me crying over 2 weeks ago. What's next, Mom? My best friend? My teacher? Ryan shifted uncomfortably, then had the audacity to smirk. You have to admit, it's been over between us for a while. I've moved on. Maybe you should too. That smug tone, that subtle attempt to make me feel small, sent another crack through me. I lunged forward like I might hit him, and only my mom stepping between us kept me from losing control. She scolded him for what he said, but still stood closer to him than to me, her choice made visible in that one horrifying moment. The fight carried on for hours that night, me screaming, her begging me to try and see it differently, and Ryan offering useless platitudes about how things change, and this doesn't have to ruin us all. When I finally locked myself in my room, I felt like the walls were caving in. I pressed my back against the door as if I could keep the betrayal out, but of course, it was already infest, airing inside me like poison. When the news leaked, because secrets this ugly never stay hidden, the reactions rolled in. Some of my extended family were disgusted. My aunt called me privately, whispering, I don't know what's gotten into your mom, promising I had a place with her if I needed it. But others, they shrugged it off, muttering things like, she deserves happiness, or maybe you should let it go. As if I was the selfish one, as if my shattered trust were less important than my mom's bizarre version of love. At school, whispers spread faster than wildfire. Everyone seemed to know, and everyone had an opinion. Some guys snickered, calling Ryan the ultimate player, while others pitied me, their sideways glances heavy with curiosity. Every time I walked down a hallway, I heard my name tangled up with words like mom and ex. Even my closest friends didn't know what to say. Half the time, they just stared at me, wide-eyed and wordless, like I was living in some drama too outrageous to watch quietly. And so I stopped talking. I stopped answering messages, stopped hanging out, stopped confiding in anyone. The betrayal had already twisted me inside out, but the judgment, the speculation, and the feeling that everyone was waiting to see how long it would take for me to break pushed me deeper into isolation. I felt crushed beneath a weight no one else could carry, suffocated by the silence of a house that no longer felt like mine, haunted by the truth that I had lost my boyfriend and my mother in one single, brutal blow. After that night, nothing was the same. My mom made her choice clear in ways that cut deeper than any words could. Whenever family questioned her judgment, she rushed to defend Ryan, painting him like some misunderstood saint. She said things like, you don't know him the way I do, or he makes me happy, can't you just be supportive? As if my pain was just an inconvenience, and detail she could gloss over. Eventually, people stopped challenging her, but I could feel their quiet disgust. The worst part? She didn't care. She had him, and to her, that was enough. And then came the final humiliation. Ryan moved into our house. My safe place, the one corner of the world where I thought I could hide from him, was invaded. His toothbrush appeared next to mine in the bathroom. His shoes sat by the front door like he belonged there. His laugh echoed in the kitchen while my mom cooked dinner, filling spaces I used to share with her. Every detail screamed that I was the intruder and he was the rightful owner now. I stopped spending time in the living room, stopped sitting at the table for meals. I ate in my room, headphones blasting in my ears to block out the sound of their voices. But the walls were thin, and every stolen kiss, every playful comment, every subtle reminder that they were a couple now seeped straight into me. I couldn't even walk down the hall without feeling contaminated by their presence. School became unbearable too. My focus shattered. Instead of paying attention in class, I stared at the clock, dreading the moment I'd have to go home. My grades slipped so badly that teachers started pulling me aside, asking if everything was okay. I'd plaster on a fake smile and mumble something about stress, but really, I was unraveling. My friends noticed too. At first, they tried to pull me back, inviting me out, sending long messages about how much they missed me. But eventually, even they started to drift away. Who wants to constantly deal with someone who's drowning in bitterness and sadness? I didn't blame them, but it added to the loneliness gnawing at me every day. Night after night, I'd lie awake wondering how things had collapsed so fast. How did I lose my boyfriend? And my mom in one twisted move? How was it possible then? At the two people I trusted most had joined forces to destroy the foundation of my life. I couldn't look at either of them without feeling sick, and worse, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror without wondering if I was cursed. The betrayal wasn't just about their relationship. It bled into every part of me, a shadow that followed me everywhere. I stopped trusting people, stopped believing in promises, stopped thinking love could ever mean safety. All I had left was the crushing certainty that everything I thought was solid could be ripped away without warning. It got to the point where I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. Every corner felt tainted, every wall a reminder that I didn't matter. I'd walk past the kitchen and see Ryan leaning on the counter where I used to eat cereal before school, or glance at the couch where my mom and I once had movie nights, only to find them sitting there together, whispering and laughing. The air itself felt poisonous, and I knew I couldn't keep suffocating in it. One night, after another argument that ended with my mom pleading for me to grow up and accept that this is my new reality, I grabbed a backpack and stuffed it with clothes. My plan wasn't well thought out. I just knew I needed to get out before I completely lost myself. My hands were shaking, tears blurring my vision as I shoved random things into the bag. I felt like a hostage plotting an escape. I texted my aunt, begging if I could stay with her for a while, but when she didn't answer right away, I felt the panic rise so sharply I considered just running, literally running, out the door into the night without knowing where I'd end up. And then there were the darker moments, the ones I don't like to admit. The nights where I thought, if I disappeared, maybe then they'd see the damage they caused. I craved something, anything, that would let me feel in control again. At school, I started skipping classes, wandering around aimlessly, flirting, with the idea of doing something reckless just to prove to myself I still existed. I pushed away the few friends who were left, acting cold or detached because deep down, I didn't think anyone could understand what it felt like to be erased by your own mother. The lowest point came one evening when I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at my reflection like I was looking at a stranger. My face was pale, my eyes ringed with exhaustion, my expression hollow. I whispered to myself, "Who even are you anymore?" And for a terrifying second, I had no answer. That was when it hit me. This couldn't be my ending. If I kept sinking into that darkness, I'd be handing Ryan and my mom even more pieces of me, and I refused to let them win like that. Something inside me, small but stubborn, clawed itself awake. It didn't erase the pain or the anger, but it whispered that I still had options, that I could fight back, not just against them, but against the version of myself that they were destroying. I unzipped the backpack I had packed and left it by my bed, not as a plan to run anymore, but as a reminder. I was done waiting for someone else to save me. If I was going to climb out of this nightmare, I'd have to become my own rescue. And for the first time in weeks, that thought didn't terrify me. It gave me the faintest spark of strength. Revenge wasn't my first thought. It grew in me like a weed. At first, I just wanted to survive, to numb myself, but the longer I lived under the same roof with them, the clearer it became. Ryan was too smug, too sure of himself. He acted like he had won, like I was defeated and pathetic. And my mom, she defended him like he was a prince, blind to the cracks in his perfect mask. I couldn't take it anymore. I decided if no one else would open her eyes, I would. He might have fooled her, but I knew him. I knew his weaknesses, his habits, and the way he craved attention from anyone who fed his ego. The plan came to me late at night, lying awake, staring at the ceiling while their voices murmured in the next room. Ryan's biggest flaw had always been his inability to stay loyal. Even when we were together, I'd caught glimpses of those texts, those flirty smiles at other girls. People like him don't change. All I had to do was wait for him to slip up and then catch him red-handed. So I started watching closer. I paid attention when he left his phone unattended, noticing the way certain names popped up on his notifications. I noticed how he suddenly had late work calls outside on the porch, or how he'd disappear for hours with weak excuses. I even followed him once, heart racing, keeping a safe distance as he drove to a cafe across town. Sure enough, he wasn't alone. He sat there leaning across the table towards some girl wearing the exact same smirk he used to give me. I snapped a photo with my phone, my hands trembling, but this time it wasn't despair that rushed rushed through me, it was power. That picture wasn't enough, though. I wanted undeniable proof. Something so irrefutable my mom couldn't defend him even if she tried. Over the next week, I quietly collected more. Screenshots from his social media, exchanges I overheard, even a voicemail he accidentally left when he thought he'd hung up. His voice low and flirty with someone who was definitely not my mom. Each piece felt like armor, like I was protecting myself with the truth. For the first time in months, I felt alive again. The bitterness was still there, but so was a fire in my chest, pushing me forward. I wasn't just my mother's betrayed daughter anymore, and I wasn't Ryan's discarded ex. I was the one pulling the strings now, watching him dig his own grave while I prepared to hand my mom the shovel. I rehearsed it in my head. The confrontation, the reveal, the look on Ryan's face when his smug little empire crumbled. This wasn't about petty revenge anymore. It was about justice, about reclaiming the power they had stolen from me. I promised myself when the moment came, I wouldn't hold back. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. My mom decided to host a small family dinner, inviting a couple of relatives over to show how happy she and Ryan were. I knew what the night was really about, her subtle attempt to normalize this twisted relationship. She wanted everyone to see them as a couple, as if rewriting the narrative could erase all the damage. But I had been waiting, and my proof sat heavy in my pocket like a weapon. Dinner started uneventfully enough. My mom was glowing, laughing too loudly at Ryan's dumb jokes. Ryan played the charming boyfriend role flawlessly, pouring drinks, acting attentive, flashing that fake smile. It made me sick, but beneath the nausea was anticipation humming like electricity in my veins. I barely touched my plate as I watched them perform for our family. Then, when Ryan leaned over to kiss my mom's cheek, murmuring about how much he valued honesty in relationships, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I stood up, chair scraping against the floor, silencing the table. My heart pounded, but my voice came out surprisingly steady. Valued honesty? That's funny, Ryan. Should I show mom the girl you called last night? Or the one you kissed at Java Cafe 2 days ago? The room froze. My mom blinked at me, confused, while Ryan's smile slipped, his face paling as if someone had cut the strings on his puppet act. I pulled out my phone and, with shaking hands, laid it all bare. The screenshots, the photos, even the voicemail where he whispered promises to another girl. Gasps circled the table as I shoved it toward my mom. Her laughter died immediately. With each picture she scrolled through, her face drained of color, confusion, giving way to shock, then horror. Ryan, tell me this isn't true, she whispered, voice breaking. But Ryan stumbled over his excuses, the smirk gone, panic painting every word. It was nothing, just a misunderstanding. She's twisting things. I cut him off, louder this time, fueled by all the pain he ever caused me. Was it a misunderstanding when you called Emily your baby? Or when you told that girl at the cafe she was the only one who got you? Tell me, Ryan, how many lies does it take to build this perfect little life you promised my mom? He couldn't answer, and in that silence, my mom's world collapsed right before my eyes. She looked at me, then at him, her lips trembling, her eyes brimming with tears as if she were finally seeing the monster I'd known all along. The betrayal she once made me swallow whole now sat bitterly in her mouth. For the first time in months, I felt the power shift. He wasn't untouchable anymore. His empire of lies had crumbled in front of everyone, and my mom, who had chosen him over me, was left staring at the wreckage. After that night, our house became a battlefield of silence. Ryan, humiliated and exposed, packed his things within days. He didn't even try to hide the bitterness in his glare when he left, muttering under his breath that I had ruined everything. Honestly, it was the sweetest thing I could have heard from him. I wanted to ruin anything he thought he had over us. But when the door slammed shut behind him, it wasn't relief that filled the room. It was emptiness. My mom sat at the kitchen table for hours, staring into space, clutching her phone like she was waiting for a call that would never come. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for her. She had finally tasted the poison she'd forced me to drink, but sympathy didn't come. Not when I thought about the months she chose him over me. Not when I remembered her telling me to grow up while I swallowed heartbreak she had helped create. We were alone, Toggy. Ether in that house, yet farther apart than we'd ever been. One evening, I finally said what had been building inside me. I found her sitting in the dark living room, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. My voice shook, but I forced the words out. You didn't just lose him, Mom. You lost me. You broke something in me I don't think I can ever get back. Her eyes filled with tears instantly. I made a mistake. You didn't think it would hurt me? He was my first love. You were supposed to protect me, not take what I loved and make it yours. You chose him again and again, even when you saw what it was doing to me. That's not a mistake, Mom. That's betrayal. She sobbed then, whispering apologies, reaching out for me like her touch could stitch the wound she carved. But I pulled back. I didn't yell anymore. I didn't need to. My silence said everything. I didn't trust her, and maybe I never would again. That night, I packed a bag. Not in a desperate running away kind of way this time, but with calm purpose. I called my aunt, and this time she answered, promising I could stay as long strong as I needed. Walking out of that house, I felt lighter in a way I hadn't in months. Not happy, never happy, but strengthened. I lost something irreplaceable when my mom chose Ryan over me, the illusion that family is unbreakable. But in its place, I gained something better. I learned that even when the people closest to you tear you down, you can stand back up on your own. I may never forgive her, and Ryan is nothing more than a ghost in my story now. But their betrayal gave me a clarity I'd never had before. I walked away with pain, yes, but also with self-respect, independence, and the unshakable knowledge that I will never let anyone define my worth again.